Okay, we are live. How are you doing today, Ray?
Very good, thanks. Thanks for having me, Kathy. How are you?
Really good. It's been kind of a insane couple of weeks, but that's real estate for you. It's always up and down, but so far I haven't really had much of a break.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really good. If you guys are joining us live today, I've got Ray Camphu here from Now Radio, who's going to talk about branding with us. He's got a lot of really cool insights on it, from his take and his experience. I know I'm going to learn a lot from this session, and I can't wait. I gotta say though, when my husband told me that you were interested in coming to talk, I was like, woohoo! What are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
and then I messaged you and I was like, hey, Keith told me that you were interested in coming to talk. I'm like, so excited. And then you're like, oh yeah. A lot of friends told me that I had a face and voice for radio, and I thought I was being nice when I agreed to that. And then later on, Keith told me that that was like a huge insult.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it. So.
Yeah. The joke is that when somebody tells you that you have a face for radio, it means you're better heard and not seen. So when you agreed, I was like, oh man, she's throwing shade already. But yeah, no,
I did not mean it. I was just, sometimes when I'm busy, things just go over my head, or, sometimes my friends are like, you're really blonde. So maybe that was just that blonde moment in me.
No, it's fine.
So I apologize, but you do have an amazing voice for radio. I know because you have done this amazing little radio thing for your hockey team, right? The SFHL.
It's a podcast. So we have a little private league that just a couple of friends of ours put together, and for fun, we did phone interviews, and then I converted it into a podcast, which the 80 some players that we have in the league listen to, and I host it just because of for simplicity's sake. I'm not a host by any means. I don't go.
You're amazing at it. Like amazing. I've listened to them. They're hilarious.
Thanks. But yeah, that's not my own personal career path. I guess a little bit about me. You were saying that I work at Now Radio here in Edmonton. It's actually Now Radio is one of the stations that we have here in our cluster. We're owned by the Jim Pattison Media Group. And we have two stations in this market. It's 102.3 Now Radio and Up 99.3. And I work for both stations. I'm currently the music director for Now Radio and the imaging producer for Up and Now. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So
awesome. And you're going to talk about some branding, which I know I lack. Like I've never been big on branding. It's all about just like my work ethic, and hopefully people love me enough to refer me to their friends, but branding has never been priority for me.
Right.
So I think I need to learn that.
Yeah. And in my previous experience, what I actually started my career off as about 10-ish years ago now was a commercial producer. And for anybody who doesn't know, I guess I'll start there. You would make audio versions of or make audio commercials for clients of the radio station. So the client contacts the radio station, or a sales rep from the station contacts a client. They discuss the opportunity of doing some advertisement on one of our stations. They agree to a rate and to a term to advertise. And then we have a creative department, which is writers who will contact the client and explore what their needs are and what they hope to accomplish through advertisement. They'll write up a script, and then it comes to me, and then I actually put it all together. So I'll find somebody to voice it. I'll find the music beds, any sound effects that they need, anything to make the script come to life. And then that's what you hear on the radio. So there's quite a few steps in between. But anyway, that's where I started with commercial production. And it actually gave me a lot of insight into how we communicate with our clients and stuff. And, I thought that would be kind of a good place to start with this chat, because I don't know what else I could really offer to anybody who's going to watch this. But, we talk to clients specifically, like coming from different markets. I've seen what certain clients think that they need, and then what we have to tell them what they should do for their business. And so a lot of people will think of commercials and they'll think of stuff that they've seen on TV or stuff that they've heard on the air already. And they're like, oh, I want that. And that's always a terrible place to start. You can tell us what you like, what you've seen and what you've liked, but the wrong way to go about it is to copy someone else's brand, because that's going to brand you as them. So, you would want to kind of stay away from that a little bit. You want to make your own brand. So what makes your experience, your product, your service, what makes that unique? And that's what we want to focus on. You can tell us what style that you like to have for your commercial or your advertisement, but that should be all it really is. This is kind of what I've seen and what I've been, can grab my attention. Like we try to focus more on like the client itself and brand recognition of that client. So first is we have to discover what is your brand, right? And that's not necessarily what is it that you sell, what is the service that you offer, or anything like that. It's what is your brand. So what do you do in your particular field that is a little bit more different than the other companies that are competing against you? So what do you offer that's different? And that's a really basic place to start as far as branding goes. Sorry, I had a thought. I kind of lost it now. Anyway, that's the branding portion of it anyway. So that's how we try to help customers find out what their brand is and push that.
Do you get a lot of people who have like an exact vision and you're just like, no, and they're like, no, this is what I want. Like,
yeah,
give this to me.
We do have a lot of clients that come in that way, and I've been to a couple of stations, and I've been exposed to a lot of different types of clients. And yeah, you'll have some clients that are just like, I know absolutely nothing about advertising. You have to guide me all the way through it. And they're usually very easy to work with, and they're very open to new ideas. And then you have I don't want to call them dinosaurs, but just the old school way of thinking, where people will come in and they'll be like, no, this is exactly what I want. I want it to sound exactly like the guys across the street because he does advertising like this and his ads always get him clients. It's like, yeah, but if you do the exact same thing, people are going to think that you're him and go to him still rather than go to you, right? So yeah, we have had clients like that. At the end of the day, I remember I was working with a creative director and we had a really frustrating client that just wouldn't be acceptable to any new ideas, wouldn't be acceptable to anything other than their own scripts that they wrote, their own voices that they chose, and all that stuff. They wouldn't let us do anything creative or new for them. And I was talking to the creative director and I was like, man, isn't that frustrating to have to deal with that? And it's like, at the end of the day, our jobs as creative writers, as producers, as a radio station as a whole, it's not to like convince. It is our job to kind of try to convince them to go in the right direction. But she gave me the analogy of like, if somebody walked into a McDonald's and they're like, I want a quarter pounder with cheese, do you think that the person who's taking that order could be like, no, actually, I bet you'd really like a McChicken, right? And it's like, no, I want a quarter pounder with cheese. And so that's the kind of issue that we run into with them. It's like, we have to give them what they want at the end of the day, because they're the client. They purchase, they pay, so they get what they want. All we can do is kind of advise them. And we found that the best way to do that is to make sure that we present as professionals. It's not like we have to have like not concrete evidence, because everything is very subjective. But we have to have, we have to present properly. And we find that oftentimes when clients are less receptive to ideas is when you go in underprepared, when you go in and you present, hey, maybe we should change up your marketing campaign to make it seem like this. And then all of a sudden the audio doesn't play, or there is no PowerPoint presentation. There's no tangibles for them to see or hear, and they're less susceptible to those changes. Then they're just going to stay with what they have, or worst case scenario, leave altogether.
Right. But what about the results of that? Like, you know, you can advise and have something that's amazing, that's different, that's going to be, you know, more noticeable when you're on air or on billboard or whatever. You know, how do the results affect you if their ideas flop?
Well, I mean, and that's the thing that sucks too with advertisement, is that there is no anybody who tells you that you can tangibly sell advertisement, like to have a tangible result to it, is probably dreaming. Just and the only reason I say that is because there is no real way to track it. You know, like we've tried some clients come in and be like, can we embed a code word that'll give our customers a discount so that we know that those customers came from your advertisement? Well, sure, but that shouldn't be a tangible way to do it. Our job as advertisements is to make your business top of mind. And what top of mind awareness is that when anybody thinks of your industry, we want you to rise to the top. We want them to think of you right away. And how do you measure that? Right? Like, how can you possibly really measure that? I mean, sales is one thing, you know, foot traffic is another thing, you know, like there's certain hints that you can get that things are working, but there's no tangible way to tell if something is or isn't a flop. And that's what I feel like some people come into advertising and marketing to purchase advertising and marketing, and they think that they can get these tangible results. And honestly, I don't think that you can. I don't think that any company of any brand or nature really can say that they have tangible results from their advertisements outside of, people actually talking about their advertisements that they've seen. And we've seen that before. We've had customers go to these businesses and be like, I heard about you guys on the radio and then they'll recite their commercial to them. And that's how they know that is working. But you have to keep in mind that is one in how many of people will actually verbalize that I heard your ad and it made me come to you. Like, how many people are actually going to say that? Not many. There's not very many. Even when you ask them, they're probably not going to tell you honestly too, because they can't. It's a subconscious thing, right? It's a subconscious thing. There's a certain percentage of people that when you say, "Hey, I'd like to get a Coke," some people will think Pepsi right away, right? And some people will think Coca-Cola right away, and that's their top of mind awareness. Is when you ask somebody for an iced tea, somebody's going to automatically assume you mean a Brisk, or somebody's automatically going to assume you mean a Lipton, right? But you don't actively think of that. It's something that's buried in your subconscious. That's what you think of when you think of that particular product.
Yeah, exactly. You're never thinking like, oh, that no-name cola, that's what I want.
Yeah, exactly. No, right? But I mean, but No Name is its own brand as well. Like you have certain connotations that you think of as soon as you think of that brand, right? So, I mean, those are the two different aspects of it too. So we want to make sure that when people do think of your brand, they think of it positively. And then also when they think of your industry, we want them to think of you, So that's why like things like catchy jingles are starting to resurge again in my industry anyway, in radio advertisement. Catchy jingles, people get them stuck in their heads all the time. And then they're just like, man, I need to get this out of my head. And they don't realize that the next time that they think of a locksmith, they're going to think of this guy who had the jingle that went on for 60 seconds, which is a long time in radio advertising terms. A 60-second jingle is a very long time. But I mean, that stuff works, right? Like, could you, I'm exposed to it all the time, but I mean, if I think of Sherwood Honda, I think of their jingle, right? Like, and things like that.
We laugh at those commercials every time it comes on.
Yep.
Like my whole family is like, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
But
as soon as I said it, you can hear it in your head.
That's the thing. Like, yes, I am singing the jingle in my head. Sherwood buy it, Sherwood Honda.
Bang on, right? And that's the thing is that all I had to say was the name, and you already came up with their jingle and what their positioning statement is, right? So, I mean, and that kind of encompasses, like Sherwood Honda is a great example of two different things. One is that jingle that I was talking about. Is that's a part of their brand. They're fun. They don't take themselves overly seriously. They have like kind of
Definitely not.
a really cheesy jingle, but it sticks and it works really well. And the other thing about that that a lot of people overlook when they look at marketing and advertisement is frequency. They've been on our station for decades. They've been on a lot of stations for decades. That's an example of a company that takes their advertising and marketing very seriously, because once they came up with that jingle, they knew that that was the jingle that they wanted to use for that campaign. They kept it going so that way that campaign, as soon as you hear that in the beginning of it, you think of Sherwood Honda. You know what's coming up next, and even if your brain turns it off, you know that you've been exposed to a Sherwood Honda ad, and that comes with having the right creative, which is the jingle, having the right type of production put together, which is the jingle sung itself so that it's catchy, and then frequency so that you expose people to the message long enough that it just comes right away. It just immediately, right? And that's the subconscious that you want to try to wiggle your brand and your company into, is so that as soon as people hear just a touch of it, that they get it right away. Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's terrible, but at the same time, like, it has to be, I feel like commercials or anything that's part of your brand, it has to be amazing, or it has to be so dumb it's good.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. There is a middle ground there that is like, this is a consistent message. It works, but does it retain? And if it doesn't land on the scale, like being brilliant or being super annoying, in the middle there, it's gotta do something else. It's gotta be able to be like, then when it's in the middle, you almost have to increase your frequency. It's gotta be heard more often. And so like you're right. You could hear a super bad advertisement and that'll stick with you for forever. Yeah. Or you can hear a really good advertisement, which will stick with you forever. But if you hear anything that's in the middle, it's just there. And if you don't have that message consistent all the time, then it's going to be forgotten. So that's where a lot of people live with their brand and message when it comes to advertisement. So,
so no matter how good or bad, just keep going. Just keep at it.
And that's the thing, is that a lot of people will panic immediately. Like, one of the best things that you can hear about your advertisement is somebody coming in and being like, I hate your ad. I hear it all the time. And outside of it being offensive, if somebody's like, I'm offended by your ad, pull it immediately. Yeah, for sure. Right? Like, go back to the drawing board and listen to it, and maybe you need to pull it. But if somebody's just like, it just annoys me. Annoying is actually great. It's actually fantastic. It's like, like there's a line to obviously cross there. Like, if you annoy somebody to the point where they intentionally will avoid your company, then you've crossed the line. Yeah. But annoying advertisements, people are just like, and you always ask them, well, why is it annoying? And they'll always say the same thing. As soon as I hear it, it gets stuck in my head. Or, like it's always something like that, right? Yeah. Like, basically, we want to pester you so much that you hear it, that you know it, but that it doesn't make you turn it off. Because that's the worst thing to happen. We don't want you to turn it off. We don't want you to be offended by it. But we do want it to leave an impression. And anger and annoyance is an impression, right? And same thing with like humor. Humor, making you laugh, that's an impression. Making you think, that's an impression, right? But the worst thing that an advertisement or marketing campaign can do is leave you with nothing. Leave you be like that, just because you have to think about how much advertisement we're exposed to on a daily basis. Our social media feeds are filled with paid promotional ads. Like, I think you can pick up, if anybody looks at a magazine anymore, if you open up a magazine, you're flipping about 11 pages before you even get to a single article, or the table of contents. Even look at your newspapers. Your headlines your advertisements take up more space on a newspaper front than a headline would. Like, advertisements are everywhere. So you do need to look at it seriously if you're looking to do any kind of advertising or marketing, and be like, what am I willing to commit to this? Because it's not a dip your toes in type thing, because you're not going to get the results that you want. And you do need to commit to it to have that frequency and that brilliant creative, and you have to fight against a ton of different kinds of advertisements, right? So there's a lot to it. There's definitely a lot to it.
Well, I'm gonna have to pick your brain and maybe come up with some funny jingle. I'm not a serious type of person, so it's got to be a funny one.
Yeah, no, jingles are great. Like they're just a fun way of getting your name out there, and and it brings me to the other point that I was going to talk about. That this is now I finally remember. When I was in my smaller markets, I used to work in Red Deer as a commercial producer, and we would have clients that the local clients there are a little different than your local clients in like a city for Edmonton, right? So like the local clients there are like mom and pop shops that are owned, and they want to run ads that we called grocery list ads. And it's like, I want to talk about all the things that are on sale. And the problem is that if I were to sit here and rattle off, I could sit here and read you a Walmart flyer and you would retain zero knowledge of what's actually on sale. You'd have no idea. No idea at all. And all they would do is mention their company name or their business name at the top, and then at the end, and then same things like they would want their phone numbers in there. They would want their addresses in there. They want every way that people can get in touch with them. But then is that really the message that you want? Because you have to think about it. What's the number one thing that you do whenever you need to go buy something or get a service? Where's the first place you go?
The most popular place that I could think of, probably.
But where I would go is I would go to Google. I would Google
for service you don't know. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to hit is, everybody has like their favorites for, their hair salons, their grocery stores and stuff like that. There's certain things that people will always hit to. But if it's a service or product that I'm not 100% sure about, Google is where I go all the time. And wouldn't it be better if I had to look up real estate? If I had to look up a real estate agent, wouldn't it be better for me to Google your name rather than just real estate agent Edmonton? So that's what you want to have, is you want people to be like, I need a real estate agent or I need an appraiser. And I remember hearing or seeing somebody talk about blank, and you want to be that blank, and you want them to Google blank. They don't need to know how many places you've sold, or they don't need to know your referrals. They'll find all that out when they search you. So the most important thing is for people to know your name. And an advertising campaign that we ran a long time ago comes to mind, where we were running for a company called Fife and Deckel, just the sandwich shop. Mm-hmm. And we ran a list of pies. But every time we listed a pie, it was Fife and Deckel blank pie. So like Fife and Deckel pumpkin pie, Fife and Deckel banana cream pie. And that was their 30 seconds. But by the end of the 30 seconds, everybody was annoyed by it. They're like, it's just listing pies. But where were they listing pies from? Fife and Deckel. Boom, it did its job. It did its job right there. Just getting name recognition is more important than anything else. So, we talk about like branding and having what makes your service, your company unique, but also it's not like hyper focusing on the details. It's also, how are people going to find you? And it's your name recognition is more important than anything, rather than say, give us a call at blah, 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 or come and visit us at location this, this, and this. Nobody's going to remember any of that. Right. They're going to remember your name though. So your name is important. Your name is so, so important. So I would rather run a 30-second ad that told you absolutely nothing about your company, and people are naturally going to be intrigued. Like, what is that? And they'll go look it up. And then that advertisement did its job, right? Did we talk about? I can't remember if we talked about this in the pre-chat that you and I had before we went live or not. But with a philosophy that I have with all of my radio production, writing, and everything else that I do is get in, get out, and leave them wanting more, right? And that last detail is really important. The leaving them wanting more. Mm-hmm. People will come out. People will come and find out more. Nobody's ever going to hear something and be like, that didn't provide me with enough information for me to make an educated decision. I am not going to go with that person. They're going to be like, I'll look it up if I don't know it. And that's the beauty of the internet right now, is that we don't need to advertise the way that we used to with the grocery lists and the business locations and phone numbers, because it's just not helpful.
Irrelevant.
Yeah. And you mentioned the other thing that's really important too, that can't be overstated. The most effective advertisement is word of mouth. And everybody's going to talk to a friend, or we have like Google reviews and stuff like that now, and those are really important as well. So yeah, like having references and stuff like that, that's always super helpful too. And that's another branding strategy too that some companies elect to use. Having businesses that have like testimonials from happy customers and stuff like that. That's actually fairly effective, right? Like we actually use that as a branding tool on the radio station. We run what we are called testimonials, where people will call into the station and just be chatting and stuff, and they happen to drop something nice about the radio station. So I take that piece, and instead of having it go to the air and then gone, I take that, I pull it down, and then I put that into a production piece that we call imaging for the station, which is imaging is anything that runs on the radio station that is promoting the radio station itself. So we call that imaging, and then it turns it into a testimonial. So it'll have our branding off the top, which it'll say 102.3 Now Radio. The Now family is how we brand our audience, and we're like the Now family on Now. And then we have them saying what they say is really nice stuff about our radio station, and then we close it out with our 102.3 Now Radio, and then it goes into something else. So when people do say something nice about your whatever it is that you do, you absolutely have to make sure that you're utilizing that in some way for your branding. And website testimonials are really, really helpful. So for that sense. So yeah,
they do that, but I feel like I need to like stick my face on there or my name on there now. Normally I just have like sold or like the testimony, and then like my client's name, but I feel like somewhere I should have like my name or make up a logo or something and put it on there.
A logo is a really good idea, and that's another great branding tool visually. Not just with like our radio station. For us, we also do a lot of outdoor campaigning as well, so like billboard campaigns and stuff like that. Logo consistency is equally as important as having an audio consistency or advertising consistency. It's just the most important thing is consistency, and having it eye-catching and having it recognizable and different enough from something else that it's uniquely yours. And that's the thing, is that you were just saying, it's like, do I need my face for people to recognize that it's me? Well, if you have a good logo and you brand it well enough with enough frequency that people, whenever they see anything involving Kathy, they see the logo, soon enough you're going to be able to just use the logo and they'll just think of your face, if that's what you're shooting for.
Yeah, I don't need my face on there. This ain't gonna look like this forever.
But yeah, I think what you're referring to, like with your like sold images and stuff like that, like you're talking about social media presence, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so like social media is a huge part of what we do in the radio industry. It started off with like, oh, maybe this stuff is just kind of a fad and we'll just join it for fun. And it actually became a brand pillar of the Now Radio brand, where we market ourselves as Edmonton Social Network. And it's paid off quite a bit. And there's a lot for us to live up to with that kind of statement. So we make sure that we are on as many of the social media platforms as our audience is. And, we're all creeping into our 40s, but we're all downloading TikTok to try to figure out how to use it, because that's where some of our audience lives. So, we branded ourselves as that's one of our brand pillars is Edmonton Social Network. And one of the main focuses that we had when we wanted to go with that is we have, everybody's got an app. And we actually purchased an app that actually, has a feed in it. So our app, if you were to open it, would make it different from other radio stations, is that you could play and listen to the station, but you could also see all of the text messages that are coming into the station and all the other people that are using the app to just chat with each other and to interact with the stations. So we have like conversation type radio. So we have topics, and that we actually bring our audience in on it. And it's so important to what we do on the radio station that if we don't have any audience interaction, it makes for pretty lousy radio to listen to. Like we need our audience interaction. So when our audience, we created a space that our audience can interact with us based on the conversations we're having on the radio station, as well as our audience can interact with each other via the app. So that's how we live up to the Edmonton Social Network promise. Right.
So not only do you need a brand, you need a way to engage with your customers, your clients, your audience, right? Yep. So yeah, definitely. I think that goes for pretty much any industry, right? You need to have a topic to talk about, right? And get people engaged.
And that's the thing too, is knowing like companies that try to get into social media for advertisement and to grow their brand and their business or their audience. Where I see a lot of companies fall flat on it is they think that they could just snap a picture and post it and be like, this is our company. That's it. But I mean, like, and that's fine. That it's
once
fine.
You build up a brand, maybe.
Hang on a second. We have auto lights here because we're all hippies and care about the environment. Well, once you build a brand, is like that's like you can just get away with putting up images and
anything, whatever. Just like what was that one? I think it was it Doritos ad?
Yeah.
Where they pulled their logo and they're like, you know what brand this is.
Exactly.
I was just like, yes, everyone knows it.
Yeah.
You don't need the logo anymore. You're so big, you just don't need the logo anymore.
Yeah, and that comes with frequency, right? Like that's their frequency of their advertisement. Their brand is that attitude. You always had to have attitude to be a Doritos chip eater because they're edgy. They don't make chips that look like other chips, right? Like they had all these different brand pillars that they all brought together to make this like we don't even need to have a logo before you know who we are. And that was brilliant. That was really great.
Yeah.
But just to go back quickly to the social media aspect of it, because you brought up the important word with your social media is engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just enough to send out these messages or your specials or whatever it is on social media. How are you expected to engage with that? So think of it to yourself as that if I was scrolling through my feed and I saw this company that I follow or somebody else in my feed follows, how would I be expected to interact with this post or this picture? Like, what do they want me to do? And if there is no form of engagement, then you're talking to a wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not doing any good. Like. They're like, oh, it's just promotion for us. Well, what are you specifically promoting, right? Like, what is it that you want people to do, And that's why posts with questions on them are always going to get you the most interaction. And interaction on social media means that it grows and it grows and it grows. So that way, one post that you make on your own page, if person X decides to comment on it, then your post goes to everybody in person X's file or a friends list. And then if person Y decides to write it, now you're doubling your exposure to a whole nother group. So interaction is so important, right? And that's why you'll see a lot of companies do like the like and share contests and stuff like that online for Facebook and everything. I'm not 100% sure of the legalities of it anymore because I know that Facebook and Twitter and all these social medias are clamping down on it a little bit just because of contesting online. There's rules and regs, but I mean that's a great way to do it, right? Who actually has a really great social media presence. For myself, anyway, I play hockey. I'm a goaltender, and I follow the United Cycles goalie loft, and they do a fantastic job because they give me posts that I actually want to see, and they give me reason to be engaged with them sometimes, right? Like they'll show like, hey, this new set came in, and it's like, what sets do you want to see us bring in for demos? And that's simple. That's super simple, because I could just write, I'd love to see this set come in. And then all of a sudden, everybody in my list sees that I've commented on the United Cycle thing. And it spirals from there.
Trickle effect. Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So, I mean, without even actively wanting to advertise to my friends that I'm a fan of United Cycle, I have, right? So that's really important. Also, the other thing that's important too, we talked about frequency. We also have to say, like, there's a difference between being frequent and consistent, and then there's also being a spam, like being a bot, essentially, with your social media. You have to be very careful with that. On average, and this is another thing too, is that you have to learn how the Facebook and social media algorithms are going to see you. If you're posting too often, like way too often, and trust me, you'll know when you're posting too often, your posts will actually get buried. Like, they won't even be seen by people that actually like your page or follow your page. They'll just hide it, because they'll assume that you're a bot.
Or a bot.
They just take you right out. So over posting is just as important to avoid as, being consistent with posting and stuff like that too. There are some key peak times for certain demographics. So those are things that you should do a little bit of research on, find out who your key demographic is that you're trying to hit with your social media presence, and make sure that you're scheduling posts for those times, right? And, there's the occasional time that you can break the rule if something great happens or you have really great content, then go ahead with it. But, you want to make sure that you're publishing the right content and not
you
just
definitely need to look at the insights. What age groups are have the highest engagement at what time of day and all that stuff. Like, definitely don't just advertise and wait and do nothing. Like, look at the insights for sure. Analyze it.
And then with engagement as well, if your posts or your social media presence is getting engagement, the most important thing is returning that engagement. So going through and actually watching your post and servicing your post. When people comment, you go in and they ask a question, you answer it. You have to be there for them. They have to see communicating with your post or your social media is communicating directly with you.
Otherwise, there's no point. They're not going to comment back anyways. Why am I asking questions? Why am I liking their posts? They're not going to give me anything.
Get something out of it, right? And that getting something out of it is like, oh my God, like they wrote back to me. Like, for example, I started a car page for my car because I'm really proud of it. So anyway, I made the post. I made a couple of posts, and one of the companies that I follow for car parts, I've never ordered anything from them before, but I'm obsessed with watching their YouTube videos. They liked one of my pictures. That was huge for me. Now I'm an even bigger fan of their page, and I haven't bought anything from them. I want to, and I probably will. But based off of just that alone, like, they see me as a person. Oh my God. And they don't even know me. Like, that's great, right? Like, so, little things like that make the big difference, right? And it's making sure that you're staying engaged with your audience or your target demographic.
Right. And the one thing that I've learned in this past year was just like give, like add value. If you've got a business, selling a service or whatever, stop selling. Just provide value, and that naturally will attract the right people to you, right? And that's kind of the one thing that I've just been concentrating before just on real estate, servicing my clients. I give them everything I know, and I kind of over communicate at times, but like I kind of provide value without knowing, and then that reciprocation comes back, in terms of referrals and all that stuff. So, I've been doing it, but not consciously, right? But that's how I've been in the business for this long. Like, it's been over 11 years now, right? But this past year is when I kind of consciously seeing people going, just provide value and the people will come.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a huge thing. Aside from branding, provide that value. right?
Yeah. I mean, and that can be one of your brand pillars as well, is over caring for your clients. That absolutely can be something that you hang your hat on. It's like, I care so much that I overdo it, right? Like you could spin that into a positive, and you could easily make that a brand pillar.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned brand pillars a couple of times in this chat. That's super important. Like to sit back and look into your own company, your own business, and be like, what is our brand pillars? And they may not necessarily be what they are at that moment, but it can be what you want them to be. How are you going to build that brand pillar? And brand pillars are what holds up your company. And what are those pillars and how strong are they is completely up to you. So what do you want to focus on? What do you want people to know about you? Right. So, and that's where you build your brand pillars to hold up your company.
Awesome. That was genius. Totally going to use that now.
Yeah. No problem. It's now the first one's free. I'm dropping a bunch of nuggets.
Yeah, if anybody is on here, even if you're watching the replay, let us know if you have any comments or questions. I'm sure Ray wouldn't be opposed to answering any branding questions that you might have. But yeah, he's seems like a huge wealth of information there.
Thank you. I've been called a wealth of other things before, but not so nice for information. But no, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on. I know you said that I volunteered to come on, but then I felt like Keith asked me to come on, so whatever.
Oh, really? I don't know.
No, it's
Keith
fine.
says, love you long time, Ray.
Yeah, no, I was honestly really nervous about coming on because I didn't know what I could really offer to. I didn't know what I could actually offer for advice for real estate people and money making and stuff like that. I'm in the business of taking people's money. So yeah.
Well, this isn't just for real estate, right? This is only part of it. It's for entrepreneurs, because I have tons of entrepreneurial friends. So anything that to do with real estate or business, this is kind of what it's for. When I started it, the actual intention of it was to help our local businesses to, get a little more exposure with the pandemic. Everyone was kind of suffering, right? So I was just hoping to kind of lend a hand and get people a little more exposure with their business and what they do. And at the same time, pick their brain on, how did they get to be successful in their business, or how did they end up starting their business, right? Yeah. So that's where it came from. It wasn't my intention to be like all real estate, because that's no fun. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's fun, but not everything aspect of it is amazing. And I don't know if I could go on and on and on about real estate week after week after week, right? It'll kind of repeat itself. But I know it's ever changing, right? So there are lots of things to talk about, but it gets old, right? So, but business is it changes all the time. And I'm constantly learning, and I love learning. So this past year, holy cow, I'm doing automations, talking about commenting on posts. I can automate that.
Yeah, you can. The human touch is always a little bit better, though. I will say that.
Sorry, what was that?
The human touch is often better, but you could automate that. Yeah,
definitely. There are some things where you can't automate, right? But if I had a post where I'm asking for certain comments, or giving away something, I can definitely automate that, right? That's it's not going to make any difference, but there are definitely some things where if you're creating a robot for that, it's gonna sound funny.
Yeah. Robots still can't sound like humans yet, even in typed out form. So yeah, it's always best to give that human element to your posts and everything like that too. So yeah,
definitely. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions about branding, or maybe you need somebody to bounce ideas off of, Ray, would you be open to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, you sound like a really creative guy. Like, you know, I just took what I do and you're like, hey, you can brand that. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I mean, I know I've talked to you about this before and you're like, oh, I don't know, but I think you have something. Like, you could really help a lot of people and like provide a lot of value. So thank you very much for coming to talk with us. And yeah, have a beautiful day. It's gorgeous out.
Yeah, 20 degrees. I'm
Yes.
overdressed.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much. Oh.
All right. Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.